So if you're not here, we reviewed Morse v. Frederick. We also actually watched a video about it at the end, so that is a good way for you to catch up on that. Here's the result. Prep your lecture notes. Very short lecture today, so try to get some active listening notes. Just one thing. So civil liberties, civil rights. Civil liberties defined. Basic individual freedoms are protected by law from governmental abuse. These are things like the Bill of Rights, which we've gone over, the amendments to the Constitution, which we've gone over, and also the laws that do get passed. They are meant to protect your civil liberties, right? Laws are the most likely to be overturned or changed with time. As we've seen, it's a lot harder to overturn an amendment, right? So laws are more likely to change, but it's also a much quicker or faster way to protect some civil liberties. So you don't have to go through a super long process like you would with the Bill of Rights, with like an amendment or something, right? So examples of this, like freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, as we talked about in class, all First Amendment things, right to bear arms, Second Amendment, freedom from unreasonable search and seizure, Fourth Amendment. We went over this 2 units ago. But one of the things I brought up to the class is, are these things absolute? Do we see examples of these things getting infringed upon? Yes, we do. There are limitations to these things. So it's not just cut and dry, right? The Supreme Court case we looked at today, Morse v. Frederick, limited freedom of speech of students, right? Or what kind of speech they can have or use. Right to bear arms, I brought to the class, like, you guys are not 18. You don't have as much freedom to get these weapons as other people, or some states have background checks. There are restrictions put in place against some of these things. Then we did go into civil rights, defined as civil rights guaranteed equal rights and equal treatment under the law. These are rights that government must provide to its citizens. So this is like, if a civil liberty is a law that's put in place to protect people, civil rights are like making sure that all people get protected under these laws. So protecting against discrimination based on race, especially, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, ethnicity, religion, disability. So it's just making sure that people are adhering to the laws when it comes to these protected groups of people. You can't discriminate against these people for no reason, right? So this is a lot more, we see this in more modern history, people fighting for these civil rights. I had brought up a couple examples. I brought up the civil rights movement, obviously, for Black rights in America. And then I brought up more recent ones, like we talked about sexual orientation, the right to marry didn't happen nationally until 2015. So that's like a very recent one that they still have to fight for, right? A lot of other examples of things that people are still currently fighting for. Examples, right to protect against discrimination, fair trial, right to vote, right to an education, right to use public facilities, right to government services. So what are some limitations on civil liberties? So you can have some forms of censorship, right? We talked about 5 Supreme Court cases already. We'll look at more about limiting free speech when it is and is not applicable. Examples can also be limiting free speech during wartime. So like, you can't speak out against the government because it might give away government secrets, or it might create an environment not conducive to the war effort, things along those lines. And then limitations on civil liberties, hate speech. We've seen speech get limited, and this is a little bit confusing because you can say some of these things. You can say, I don't like or I hate this group, but that hate speech can't be leading to action, right? You can't say, I'm going to kill this group, or I'm going to do this to this group, right? So these are things that you can say, but it can't lead to action. It can't be immediate. It can't pose an immediate threat to a person or a thing, right? Then you should write your summary again when you watch that video, and you do have an exit ticket.